Hey, Tony. It's
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
It's all right. It's about 104 in the backyard today, and I'm sweating my ass off.
That was a little overzealous even on my part.
And, how are you today, Tony?
I'm good. I'm more excited about your cornhole tournament you just came back from.
Well, I did, and it's impressive. Like
it was Ventura, right?
It was Ventura.
Tell me the name of the tournament, because you and people know Kevin and I are a little addicted to cornhole.
Yeah, but we're at one level. This event I went to is... they called it the Coachella of cornhole. I'm like more of the Warped Tour of cornhole. It was like a true lifestyle event.
Yeah.
It's called the Throwdown, and there was almost 1,000 teams there.
Really?
And it was at the Ventura Fairgrounds, so it brought a lot of memories from doing Warped Tour up there and having a great time. And this a gentleman started out in front of his restaurant. It's called Merriman's in Ventura.
Right.
Started out, I think, with 3 or 4 boards. He got permission out in the parking lot. Then it moved out into the street. They blocked off the street eventually. It outgrew the street. Then moved downtown Ventura to one of the big parks, like right in the middle of town, where we actually did a big benefit show once for the fire relief.
No, I drive past all the time. This is the venue where they have like the drive-in concerts during COVID and all that. Yeah.
During COVID, a guy named Vincenzo, who's fantastic, built a venue there that he's been doing drive-in concerts.
Right.
And they got together and said, hey, we can move it here, because the city wasn't so stoked on maybe doing something still with the pandemic kind of looming and everything. But the county was like, hey, the fairgrounds, big parking lot, we're doing events over there. Go for it. So,
and I imagine it takes a certain type of clientele, personality to have the Coachella of cornhole. What was the event like?
It was like I went up like, hey, Kevin, you want to come up? And then all of a sudden we're driving up there, and I pick up a little newspaper when we got some gas in the van, and I look at it, and it's like, that's what they call it, the Coachella Cornhole, the world's largest cornhole tournament.
Well, you said there were 1,000 teams or something.
1,000 teams. That makes it 2,000 people.
At $250 a team, that's a $250,000 prize.
The prize money was huge. People came, and all of a sudden we walk in, and like, I like NASCAR, but like cornhole teams now look like NASCAR teams. They've got like shirts identifying teams.
As they should.
And they have patches of sponsors. And
I'm just sorry they're not wearing helmets.
And all of a sudden we realize we are definitely in the wrong, like.
No, we're good.
No, but
I can't knock it, dude. You're good at cornhole play. Better than golf.
But what ended up happening was, it was 2000. Everyone gets to play together. So it started out yesterday.
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
And we thought we might get to play and play and get eliminated, or maybe a double elimination. No, you were assigned a space, 19. So we were 19 out of like 100 spaces. Mm-hmm. And you played 7 other teams. So you played 7 games yesterday. And then they broke it down today, where I had to get out of there because it's just too much. And I had to come do this with you, Tony. But it was like, we were 2-5. We won our first game. We won one another.
Good for you.
But you played against your draw could put you against some of the best pros in the world. So when the guys showed up in their NASCAR shirts, I go, I'm in trouble. Like the guys on we're cool, like in our bathing suits and playing, having fun.
The ones that scare me that have the NASCAR shirt, a Coors in one hand and a right hand that just doesn't stop.
The world champion, Ryan is his name. Boom. You see him on ESPN and everything. Yeah, I was hanging out with him yesterday.
Really?
I don't know how he had 2 beers. And he drank all, and then he went out and was 6-0 when I ran into him at the end of the night. Like they were 6-0.
Oh, good.
Probably playing in the championships today. But it was it was just interesting seeing a lifestyle. And that's what, I always looked at the events we try to produce, whether it's Mayhem, Taste of Chaos, Warped Tour, embrace the lifestyle. And I saw the owner, and we were hanging out a bit, and I said, man, you nailed it. You got
the niche.
You nailed a niche where I'm like saying the next niche is going to be pickleball. So we're going to do things all pickle. Or this thing I see on USC campus this week, this smash ball thing they're playing. Spike ball.
Spike ball.
And it's like a little thing. I saw all these people playing it. I go, start creating a lifestyle event around that. Not driven in a weird way by music. They had some music yesterday. It was some cover bands playing. There was like a Journey cover band and a Guns N' Roses cover band. But it was people were there, and they travel all over the country. They gather. It was a big community. Talk to a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds.
No, it's fun.
Yeah, I probably won't be traveling around doing this, but it was sure fun to participate once. But this episode kind of is, we're looking at it as, it's going to be a little bit, we're bringing a friend on here. Shira.
Yeah, this is a big segue to this episode, from cornhole to this episode.
Shira Levin is going to be our guest on this show, and we're going to be talking about how she brought some girl power to the tour. We're going to have Wendy Davis, the founder of Poca's Hot Sauce, and a few girl and queer bands that toured on Warped Tour, the Randies, No Hugs, and Adrian from Plasma Canvas, a band that I was really stoked to witness and actually introduce the Warped Tour out of Colorado, and is signed to Side One Dummy Records. Eventually, they signed to Side One Dummy Records, and Bill Stevenson from The Descendants, who was at that show with me, saw at the same time, produced the album, and they're doing a new album now. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been This should be a fun episode. We're back in school. The Petri dish.
Yeah, we're back in
the Petri dish of
back
fun.
in the nightmare of school and moving forward there. No, anybody that wants to get a hold of us or ask any questions, make sure you text us at 818-863-6445.
And we are now on episode 16 of this podcast. And, I'm saying, hey, it's taking me longer to get sponsors for this podcast than I did for most of the tours I've ever presented. So if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, reach out to us. We'll pump your product. I'll wear your product. We'll taste your product. And right now, we could probably use some super cold drinks.
Liquid Death.
Well, we have Liquid Death. That's good. They've been great, but at this point, I could use a cold beer. So, so after this weekend,
there you go. If anyone, there's a hint for you.
Yeah, we'll pump up your beer and have a good time.
Some straight vodka. Any vodka want to sponsor us?
Yeah, maybe a rum punch. I don't know.
It was really nice. It was really nice to have Shira here at the house and to be able to interview her here. And we took a lot of time with her, and I had no idea some of the things that she had brought to the Warped Tour. How did you first meet her?
I don't remember meeting her first. And I think maybe she explained it, maybe why I didn't remember.
I was on the Truth Tour, and I had been very active in the Riot Girl scene in Brooklyn at the time. I had a lot of friends in, bands, and also I was in an all-girl band as well. And so I started to notice, looking around the stages, and especially on the main stage, where were the female musicians? There really weren't any. And I started to wonder why. And I would kind of ask around to people like, oh, what's up with this tour? Like, how come there are no female musicians? I just kind of started to talk to people on the tour like, hey, where are all the girls on this tour? And people would say, oh, girls don't really play this kind of music. And I would say, no, I know that's not true. I was like, I have a lot of friends in all-girl hardcore bands, and but they weren't being signed to labels. They weren't being played on the radio. And so they weren't really getting exposure, at that level. And so I did meet Kevin one night. He was partying on the Truth truck. He came to schmooze the sponsors. And I just said to him, hey, where are the girls on this tour? I don't know if you remember this, this night when we first met, but I remember it very clearly. And, he got very defensive,
Of course, there are girls. What are you talking the girls on this tour?
Yeah.
There's tons of girls on this tour.
Yeah, they did have Tsunami Bomb play. That was the one girl on the main stage, but, she was just singing, so there weren't any, musicians playing instruments. But, you were like, I tried to get the girls. We had the Donnas. They get too big for me. They grow out of Warped Tour. They don't want to come back. And, you definitely, and you're like, I have 2 daughters, and I'm all about the women. We got women running the tour. And so I could tell that you cared about it. It wasn't just a fact of, you weren't dismissive about it, but you also were kind of up in arms, like, because obviously this was not the first time someone had given you a hard time about it,
So, yeah, you had mentioned it was hard to remember that first time out. I'm sure you get approached by so many people all the time. But she was really determined to make an impact. She didn't stop.
No, absolutely not. And, that's the thing about Shira. It's, you can complain in life. I always believe, there's a million people that will constantly complain, but it's how do you take action and what do you take action to make it better? That's what I really found about Shira. She was willing to step up and put the heavy lifting behind it to build up the presence.
And, the last episode that we did that is coming out is about side stages and very fascinating. So if you just heard the last episode, it was side stages. And there were so many different side stages. And what Shira did was really cool and yet very sneaky the first time.
We wanted to set up in the girls' garage tent, which was a great tent where they were giving out tampons. No, Michelle Ponce's tent was great. They did a lot of advocacy for Keep Abreast. And I said, let us come in. We'll DJ all day. We'll invite some local bands in, girl bands. And Kevin just said, great idea. he's like, you know what, we got a lot going on next year. It's a 10th anniversary. He's like, let's do it the following year. Let's do it next year.
Right.
But when you're 21, like next year, that's an eternity away. So we basically just decided to crash the tour. We were touring in a pink RV. We happened to be in LA.
On the 10th anniversary?
Yeah, at the Fullerton stop. And we happened to be in LA because I had met Tim Armstrong from Rancid on the tour in 2003, and he said, come to LA and record with me. So we happened to be in LA recording with Tim, and, we had friends that were still working the Truth campaign. They got us passes, and we showed up early. We knew the drill. We drove in, kind of recognized the guys working the gates, and hey, acted like we're supposed to be here. Oh, hey, Shira, what's up?
You totally crashed.
Crashed it, 100%.
What did you set up a stage on your own?
So we had this little RV, and we parked it next to the Truth truck across from the skate ramp.
God damn.
And we had this little, punk rock setup,
Were you even aware that this was happening?
It wasn't the first time. But for Shira it was. But other people did it throughout the years, and that's where
they crash your concert,
we're talking
man.
to a lot of people that recently that had stages, and it's interesting because people give me a name of a stage, and I'm like, what? And so you guys set up by the skate ramp, which you knew all the crew, and it was easy to set up.
Dude, I went on my own stage. That would be awesome. So what happened?
So Kevin walks up. We're holding our breath. We're like, oh, we thought we were going to get kicked out,
Right,
but we had to try.
Definitely.
And he walks up and he kind of looks around. He's like, Shira! And he kind of looks around and he's just like, okay. And then he just said, so you on for the rest of the tour? And,
you let her go right
and
there.
I felt like it was not only an invite, but it was almost like a challenge. Like, oh yeah, you think you can play with the big boys? Like, oh, so you ever said yes?
So you had to get on.
We followed the tour.
In your van.
Oh yeah. And
that's bitchin'.
And there were bets.
You joined the circus.
There were bets on whether or not we were gonna make it to the next show.
Oh yeah, this pink van was like duct tape. You seen those duct tape and bungee cords and
do we have a AAA card? No. Fuck
everything
it, let's
holding
go.
that thing together. And they that it was a challenge. It's like, okay, you want to come out and do this. It also want to show you it's hard. It's not, it's not like you show up one day and set up. It's like doing this each and every day.
Honestly, tell me how that first Fullerton show went.
It was amazing. The doors open. The girls came running. They're like, "What is this pink thing?" And
oh my god,
and we
you must have drawn.
Oh,
that's great.
We had little skirts, and it was like, we played. And my background is in performance art, so I had a huge Barbie doll, what was it? Yeah, we smashed it. I can't think of the word. A pinata. We had a huge
Barbie dream car, Barbie dream house.
No, and I would take my guitar and I would smash it, and it had tampons and candy. I mean, we were just like we were unhinged. We were just like,
no, that's awesome.
Punk rock. I would climb up to the top of the RV. I had a wireless mic, and I would perform from the top of the RV, and people went crazy. People loved it. So, and this was my first taste of punk rock stardom. They would line up for the autographs after. I'm like, oh, I'm famous. You know?
Did you know at that moment, Kevin, that when you said, okay, this is cool, I'm going to let it go. And that's great. What I've experienced about you is your judgment is great, and that you're able to say, okay, or you're able to say, no, this isn't happening. You have the ability in a very kind way to say, I love you, kid, but it's not going to happen. At that moment, you said yes. Why did you do that?
The determination. It's all of a sudden, also she was kind of challenging me.
Right.
And I'm like, my job is pretty hard. Trying to put this together and thread this together, trying to create an atmosphere for everything and actually still make it a business.
Right.
But you made it this far. Let's see how far you would go.
And I imagine that at that time, the 10th year anniversary, you had no idea what this stage was going to eventually become.
No, it was, it was really great because, tour ended, we kept in touch, and later on we'll see what she eventually grew into and came up with. I reconnected for this episode with the artist No Hugs. It was a great band, fun, and I didn't realize we were trying to set up the Zoom, Tony, to pick it up, and didn't realize that they're located in Greece right now.
Oh, really?
I'm originally from Cyprus, and I moved to the United States when I was 16 just to chase this big dream called being in a band. A lot of people in the U.S. don't even know where Cyprus is. It's a tiny little Greek island. So I formed No Hugs during my last year of college in Boston. And emo and pop punk music and rock and roll, like those are genres that are right in my heart. So I founded the band in 2015. We got it going from there. We had a couple of cool gigs, and actually in 2018, Warped Tour announced that it was going to be the last year. And it just so happened that in 2017, I made like this big statement. My band and I were at Warped Tour, and I was like, next year we're going to play Warped Tour. And they were like, Narcy, you're crazy. Like, we just started the band. We're not going to play Warped Tour. Like, there's bands that have been trying for years and years and years. I was like, no, we're going to play Warped Tour. And then you make an announcement. It's like, it's going to be the last year. And I think 4 months before the deadline, I had an accident and I completely shattered my leg and I couldn't walk. Here in Greece. So I come to the US and my band's like, we missed the deadline. And I was like, no, we're going to send an email. We're going to explain. We got to do this. We're going to do it. We're going to play it. And then, we emailed you and you got back to us and it was crazy. And they were like, Narcy, you can't walk. How are you going to play Warped Tour? I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to walk by Warped Tour. And, it was just such a great experience for people that are from where I'm from. It's almost like a delusion to say I'm going to be on Warped Tour. So, it was such a great story for the people that follow us too, that there's nothing you can't do. If you want to do it, just keep punching through,
This band that, I was able to touch bases with, Plasma Canvas, was a very, very interesting story. We were doing the end of Warped Tour. We were doing a battle of the bands kind of up for states. Like my friend who owns, Danny Grant, who owns the Mishawaka, she was doing this battle of the bands for all. You
were doing a battle on the bands on the tour itself.
Before. We had a chance to be on the Warped Tour.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we took the area, like she's in northern Colorado, and there's bands from Montana and Wyoming and all these kind of bands. And I said, okay, you organize this, and we went and booked the Descendants, which is one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, they're a great band.
To come and play. They're from Fort Collins, at least Bill is. And that night, we were sitting there, and this two-piece band gets on stage, and it's two pieces, and and just completely was blowing my face off. Just like, so I ran to the dressing room and said, "Hey, Bill, come out here and check out this band." And we're standing there, and looking at him, just going, "Whoa, this is something else." And then so this is how I met Adrian.
January 2018, I believe it was, I saw that the last Warped Tour was going to be that year, and I thought, God damn it, I've always wanted to be on the Warped Tour, and even if it's just one show, I'm gonna get my damn band on the Warped Tour. And so I found this local show that was going to be happening. The local venue was taking sort of applications to play this show that was going to be a battle for Warped Tour. And I remember on the application, it was like, why do you think that your band is a Warped Tour band? And I said, because we have it. And I just remember feeling really cocky in the moment, but we did.
Yeah, and they did have it. That was the craziest thing.
But you chose that band because you actually went to this event. You saw them, and they were good.
I was. And the craziest thing about all this for me was, about 9 months later, I had told my side one dummy, you got to sign this band. I didn't think it went anywhere. Then all of a sudden, one time I'm talking to the label, and they're like, oh, we just signed this really cool band, Plasma Canvas, and Bill Stevenson's producing the record. So later on, but, it was interesting in talking to Adrian and the challenges, because grew up in the Midwest and had relocated to Colorado when I met Adrian, and kind of what it was like growing up as a queer and trans band.
I have really mixed feelings about my upbringing, and I will always. So I didn't grow up in the city of St. Louis. I grew up about an hour to the west in a really small town, and I grew up openly queer. And then when I was 24, I came out as a trans woman. And I lost a lot of people in doing that. And so coming to Colorado, starting Plasma Canvas, which is, we call ourselves the loudest, gayest band in the world, and just being open and upfront about what we're about and who we are. We're, a couple of trans people making really loud punk rock. And, just I will always have love for St. Louis, the St. Louis area, and everything to do with that place. But I also know that there's a lot of pain there for me personally. And so it was not necessarily a fuck you to St. Louis as much as it was a fuck you to everyone who told me that I would never be anything and never do anything meaningful. And so it was cool to just kind of show up and play a fun show and just kind of say, well, look at me now, man. How do you feel?
Yeah. So what I did was when I heard their story, and this was Colorado, they were supposed to play one show in Colorado as a winner. But I heard about having to almost like relocate in some ways to a more conducive place to be around people.
Some place that wouldn't give them shit. Yeah.
I said,
Missouri
guess
can be
what?
tough.
I want you to come and play St. Louis.
Good for you.
And they loaded up, and probably get the car right, but it was like a Toyota Corolla, the drums. They loaded up and drove out to St. Louis and joined us. Because I just think it's really important that, people are just, I don't know what it is. Like we have so much judgment against people and everything. And I'm going, I've never went through that hardness. I'm a white dude, like grew up in a suburb of California. And I felt like I had problems and it just screwed. So it's fun for me when I had that ability to open the door and they took advantage of it and came and ripped the show. They just had, people checking it out.
Them.
Super fun. But then it kind of grew into, even in an accepting world as they were kind of going into, they had some challenges.
Starting out, I had to do a little bit of work to like sort of carve a spot for us in the scene here. Cause I remember when we first, were starting to play shows and stuff, it was hard to get shows because we were very loud about what we were about. And, a lot of people were just like, music's cool, but I don't know. It's just kind of too out there, too queer, too gay. I don't know if we want to be involved. And so John Snodgrass, who books at Surfside 7, after we had done like some DIY shows around the area, we reached out to John. We were able to get some shows over at Surfside, and we made a good impression. And really, John and Surfside were the reason that we were able to sort of carve our way in. So it took some time, but eventually I think we won them over.
That's even in a much more accepting community of, Colorado in many ways.
Right, of course.
And then they had this momentum going. There's momentum was going. Side One was putting out their record. They were going out on tour with Less Than Jake. Dave Shapiro was going to be their agent. And then the pandemic hit.
Ugh.
So they're like one of hundreds of bands right now that are starting to like try to relaunch the momentum they had, or
the
recapture
one that they had
that moment.
And get it back. It's super hard for so many people. And then with the Delta coming back, shows are being pulled again. But, going back to their issue of being accepted, and it was a genre that was probably harder than others to be accepted. But, it solves all those problems? Being a kick-ass band.
I mean, and that's what I just thought. I never judge people with, just be a good band, like be a good band. And maybe that sometimes was maybe that problem for me because I was always trying to find the best kick-ass bands.
Right.
And male, female, sometimes we get, there's a lot of debates about festivals and how you book, but you're constantly torn with trying to do what society may view as, but then also you have to balance the commerce. And then you kind of meet, these bands that kind of like transcend all that.
I think what you're trying to get at is that, it's one thing to get the best band in there too, but it's also super important to be inclusive because you said this, I'm a white kid from the suburbs of LA. There's a lot of kids that just never had the opportunity, never had the shot. And the fact that you were out there looking for that and also making sure that you book a good band, but, being inclusive and giving everybody a shot to get in is wonderful because me growing up in my neighborhood, not being the white kid, there were a lot of opportunities I didn't have. But let's be honest about it. It's like, and straight. It was harder for queer and trans bands. It just was. But ultimately, what they found out and what they all wanted to experience was the same thing as the other bands that weren't gay or trans. And they found it. And that's the beautiful part of this. We can't ignore the fact that they had extremely hard challenges that other bands didn't have. But once they were there and they were in it to win it, they got the experience they wanted. They got to tour. They got the fun. They got all of it. And it's great.
It's interesting, Tony, we talk about it and, Shira brings up a point. There's been a lot of progress, but progress, as I always say, takes time and commitment from people. And she pointed something out.
I just think it's hard because even though I think there's a perception that women are even like hip hop, like, because we have Meg Thee Stallion and we have Cardi B, but if you look at the ratio, it's still 4-1 men to women. In rock, there's always been this perception, and so many artists will tell you where it's like there's only room for one. There's only room for one girl band. You have, okay, we have the girl band. Who else do we want to book on the lineup? Or on rock radio, okay, you can't play 2 girls in a row, or that's the girl band that's in the rotation right now. Amy from Interrupters, she'll talk about it because the day that Interrupters, she's Kerosene, got added to K-Rock, I mean, she cried. It was one of the best days of her life because she tried to make it as a solo artist years ago, and she told me that she got all these emails back, that the radio wouldn't play her song because no one listens to female artists, and she burned them.
So later on, as the tour went, you were conscious and giving folks more and more opportunities. What are your more memorable all-women bands that you brought on the tour?
I actually became friends with these guys out on the road, and I was able to catch up.
Which band was this?
They were the Randies, and I was able to get them all on one call together. It took us a moment, but we all got on one call together, caught up, and I had Sienna, Larita, and Laura, all from all different spots. They're all doing different things now. And we all jumped on it, and we ended up just having a great conversation. Super
and they
fun.
started from a side stage, right? But did they eventually grow and get on
No,
the
they
tour?
pretty much stayed on a side stage.
Yeah,
they were a side stage, and they were on that small Volcom record label, but they got that opportunity to come out on the road.
And we were on Volcom Entertainment, and they wanted to put all the bands on the Warped Tour. So it was all the lineup of Volcom Entertainment, and we did different parts of it because they had some bands in the East Coast, I think. So we joined on. I think we did like 2 weeks on the West Coast. But the deal was they provided the van and some money, but we would have to help build the stage every day and take it apart.
You're going to hear a little barking in the background and things of her interview because she is an animal rescue person now and deals with a lot of animals, and we were having a lot of fun over that on some of this. But they had to build the stage. That's the kind of thing too. If like you wanted to get out, you had to build a stage. We've heard that theme quite often from some of these bands with the side stages and everything. And I asked them how it went for them.
At 7 a.m, we were getting up.
I remember from our days, Larita, that we would divide up the driving because we were driving our own van. So we drove in shifts, and whoever drove the last shift, sometimes we'd be pulling in, to the parking lot where it was being set up. We'd get like an hour of sleep. We'd roll out at like
one person.
7. Yeah, we'd send like whoever got the most sleep in the van with one other person, and they would drag all our shit out, our merch tent, all our merch. We'd run around trying to figure out what stage we were going to be on, and then we'd come back and wake everybody else up, and hopefully we would have some time to like shower or sleep in I remember like pulling my sleeping bag into the air conditioned like locker rooms.
She would lay out.
In there.
You lay out across the floor.
Yeah. I see Katy Perry come out in a towel while I'm trying to sleep on the ground.
I know. Bitch, stop stepping on me. I'm sleeping here.
It sounds like the time of their lives is what it sounds like.
They always seemed like smiling, positive attitudes, but realize everyone's smiling and positive attitude. You don't realize like what they were going through sometimes because you've got a tour to run, you have your things.
It's
they were always cool to hang out with. They were always seemed to be great, but they summed it up in a way of on a personal level, like what it was like for them.
It was like boot camp. It was like it was such a love-hate relationship, but it was like the most.
It's like summer camp.
Yeah, and the feeling that we got working as a team and working our ass off and doing what we love to do. And then after the whole tour was over, we're like, shit, we did that. And it was a lot of work, but it was so awesome. It was kind of like playing sports and having to work with teammates and just getting your butt kicked. And
it was satisfying.
Yeah.
And we met a lot of amazing people.
Yeah,
we had just like the time of our lives. It was so fun. And so horrible all at the same time.
Yeah. And with Relish, same thing. It was like, why are we doing this? It's hot, but we loved it. And it was the same schedule. I ever get up in the morning, the gear, everything. It was just, just like music boot camp. We loved it.
It's like getting your butt kicked like I did in the cornhole yesterday, Tony. You just kind of like grin and bear it, think you're like positive, and when you just like, I just wanted to go home.
What's so funny, I said they had the time of their lives, and it's funny, in the next clip she said we had the time of our lives, but it was like camp, but it was hard work. And I think those kind of experiences, you hear this from Warped Tour, so many people say, we had these amazing experiences that just brought us closer together. And what kind of experiences did they talk to you about on the?
Well, I realized a lot of their threads in their lives are now animals. Laura had a few dogs. Rita's doing stuff with animals. Sienna was talking positive about animals. And I think some of the things we're going to see next were things that embedded in their brain on why they were fond of animals now.
First, we had a Ford Econoline that we bought, that we were like paying for. And then later on, we got thanks to Larita, a little RV. And that's when we felt like we were living in like a palace.
Yeah, it was nice.
Serious. It had air conditioning.
And a bed. Beds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You roadkill. I mean, Sienna ran over a kitten, and
oh my God. Yeah.
And then the Relish Vulcan band killed a deer, and we got into a big fight with the band that came after us because they wanted us to pay for their flat tire because they ran over our roadkill.
Wait, can you elaborate on that story? Like, do you remember where this like actually happened? And like a band was going to hold you responsible for like hitting the deer and then puncturing their tire?
Yeah, it was in the Northwest, and we were driving, I think we were heading up to Canada or Washington State, and just a lot of woods, and a deer came by, and luckily the singer's brother knew not to swerve, so he plowed right into it, and everything exploded, and the parts were behind us, and we had to pull over. The whole van was pushed in, and we got there late. And we made our show, but I remember when we were kind of unloading, some band was like, "Are you guys the one that killed the deer? You guys owe us $500. We ran over the roadkill, and we had 2 flat tires, and we missed your show," and blah blah blah, trying to get us to pay for their stuff. And we're like, we're not paying for that, I mean, if you see something like that big, you would try to sort or move. I don't know. I mean, that's just part of the road.
It was good, except for who was it that had to clean the kitten off the generator?
That was the only time we didn't clean it
in Canada.
No,
Kenny helped us.
No, we took it somewhere.
Kenny helped us at the place and sprayed it down because we were crying.
Kenny, was this Kenny?
Paid like an hour to do it.
We went to like a truck stop, and everybody was there, and we were looking, and it smelled really bad because we couldn't figure out where the smell was coming from. It kept just coming into the space, and we looked under, and there was pieces everywhere. And so he came over, and he saw us crying, and he came over and he sprayed it out for us and got all the gunk off.
It's like you have a roadkill. We have all these stories with the Randies and everything, but they had a very like unique personal story that I don't know if it's funny, but they did tell it on this episode.
I don't know if I made this up or if this is a real memory. Does anybody remember seeing a small plane go down in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, in the fields? Like over the fields, we were all looking.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Like a little plane.
That was a little plane.
Yeah, that's true. That did happen at that show.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
What happened? Like, did the person die? Do we know? We don't know. We just all saw the plane go down, right?
It was, and you don't want to be callous, but it's like, oh, we had to get moving to the next city. I'm sure.
I know.
We had to go to Vancouver, and things would happen on the road. We all learn on the road that you put these little compartments in your head. And then they become that kind of like, did that really happen? Was that something that happened? I do remember that.
And I'm not crazy.
No, you're not. I remember that now too. Once you said, I didn't think about it, but I do vaguely remember something like that.
The Ludo guys were there, and we were all standing around, and then
it's like, oh look,
a plane just went down. I wonder if that was scheduled today. I didn't see it on the schedule.
And I got to give props to the food. I think eating.
Oh my God! Yes.
Really kept you sane. Like if we would have been eating crappy food, I don't think we would have been functioning as good.
Well, remember when we got to the level of getting meal tickets. First it was like just breakfast, and then it was like 2 meals, and then 3 meals a day. We were like, we have arrived. Oh, and then I think we got
so
a gas
exciting.
card.
Yeah,
I think we finally got gas cards too, and we were like, woo!
oh yeah, I remember passing out gas cards because the prices of gas went up, and we've had to pass out gas cards. Everyone got a $100 gas card or something.
Well, that sounds like a really good time bonding experience.
Fun experience on the road, it's like, it's very straight. I'll never forget Arnett, the old sunglass company, Arnett, one time had this motorhome. And somehow the side of the motorhome started to separate a little bit. The motor, like one wall of it was coming off. And they hit a raccoon, and the raccoon head came up through the floor of the motorhome. I mean, you realize how many animals in America get hit by vehicles?
I'm sure.
I mean,
and
you
I'm
see
sure
that,
the Warped Tour could do a whole episode on roadkill.
But, it was great to see the Randies. It was fun to catch up with them. Ask them if there's going to be a reunion. They were hinting that they might be getting together and playing some shows coming up here.
Oh, that's cool.
Like a super smooth transition from roadkill was Darcy from Noah Hugs had a special way to get attention on the road.
In Mansfield, we could see the crowd, like the fans right in front of us. So we could see everybody. And we had a bunny mask in the back that we weren't even going to use. And I was like, I want every single one of these people to stop. So I put on the bunny mask, and like for 10 minutes, people that were behind the gate were just staring at us. And they were like, what is this? We kind of want to stop here before we go anywhere else. No one else is playing. So, we used what we could to just keep the people there. We had a great set. It was a really good spot, and we're super grateful just to experience it.
What's cool about this band is that I still hear from them once in a while.
Oh, that's cool.
I will say that 90% of the people you toured with all those years, you don't hear from. It's cool. Everyone's
Really?
Yeah, at least 90. Everyone's doing their thing. Totally understandable. But you'll get random emails from No Hugs and Darcy, just, hey, how you doing? How you guys holding up? How's
cool.
everything? And when they've come through town a couple times since being on that tour, they would drop by and say hi.
Right.
So it was very cool. And I didn't even know they were back in Greece.
I mean, to come all the way from Greece, she was at NYU, I think, and she started the band. But being from that culture, did she find her tribe at the Warped Tour?
I think so. We'll ask her how it all went.
We met people from a lot of bands, but it was mostly just what Warped Tour did for us is it gave the opportunity to the crowd that we wanted to appeal to discover us, and they still discover us through Warped Tour. But, we didn't per se get a chance to connect with the bigger bands only because our stage was just so disconnected from the main stages in Mansfield. But you said before we kept in touch, and me as a person, I never forget people that give me opportunities. Like, no matter who they are or at which point in my career, that was it. And I'm just like super grateful. And I think it's the humane thing to do is to build bonds with people that, invested, 5 minutes to send an email to you. And I think it's important to be grateful,
I like that. It's important to build bonds.
Going back to Shira, because she was here and we interviewed her in person, it was really great. After that first year, the stage that she brought without your permission, which I thought was awesome and sneaky, but then you agreed to it. What happened the subsequent years?
Well, she then came back in year 2, but actually built a stage. Like it was a pig truck. It was
Like
very
a
similar.
stage.
A stage. She showed up in Jersey with the stage, and
she's 22 at this point.
And yeah, she's 22. I mean, and I was like, oh, this is cool. All right. You got to get down the road. You got to figure it out again. She's now bit off another chunk, a large chunk to do. I also let her kind of have a little bit of leeway with sponsorships and things. We wouldn't let normal bands go out and just sell sponsorships. You couldn't sell sponsorship.
No, right.
But Shira had some companies and people. She was in the hustler in the best word, the best of all terms. She was going to figure out how to get down the road. So she showed up on this stage, but she showed up with actually a very cool band that I had met before and said I would bring them the next year. She'd come. Haley Williams had come and played at the Taste of Chaos tour on a side stage, kind of like to show me what she did. And then all of a sudden, this pink stage shows up.
So that first year, it was kind of funny. We were really hustling, and then there was this small band at the time called Paramore. Kevin said, he introed us. So yeah, I went up to Atlantic Records and met with Livia, and And she said, we have this great band. It's like the Female Thursday. And we were really stoked because our whole mission with the stage was to show girls can rock as hard as the guys can,
Sure,
you know?
sure.
And so we didn't want it to be like Lilith Fair singer-songwriter. We wanted it to be screamo, metal, hardcore, punk rock, you know, in your face. And they sent me this demo, and it really sounded kind of like Avril Lavigne. It was not screamo. It was not Female Thursday.
Right.
And so I was a little confused. And one of my industry mentors at the time said, tell the label to fly you down to see the band. So they flew me down to see Paramore in Orlando at Back Booth. And once I saw them live, I got it because I was like, "Oh my God, they're amazing!" Because they were flipping over each other, and I met the mom, and you know. But Haley was actually very sheltered, and she was kind of. We wanted to talk to her and get her on board for our girl power mission, right? She was like 15 or 16, and they whisked her into the van after the show.
Yeah, and as they should.
Stay away from these crazy
exactly.
punk rock girls, you know. And yeah, Jeff Hansen was one of her managers at the time, and yeah, he was like, she's gonna be bigger than Gwen Stefani. And he said, she's gonna be up on stage shaking her titties, he said to me. I was like,
oh, Jesus.
you know, he did not get like what we were about.
Welcome to the music.
He was a former manager.
Yeah, he didn't last very long.
Well, I mean, that's a hell of a pick for a second year second stage, right? She landed Paramore.
Well, you know, and it's also she's going up to Atlantic Records in New York City, 22.
Good for her.
Just getting in the door of Atlantic Records, you have to get and live. But Livia Tortella has been a big supporter of this music for a long time, and she was working with bands like Sum 41 and Simple Plan. You know, she brought Sum 41 over here for Thanksgiving one time.
Right.
They were stuck in, but Livia is great. She runs a company called Black Box now, a creative services company for labels. She's always been that kind of person and has an open door policy.
It didn't stop there for Shira either beyond that. I mean, she just kept going.
Oh, yeah, she kept going. And later on, I had Joan Jett out on the tour on the main stage. She was touring with her, but, Shira had her own plans.
So Joan Jett, the legend herself, yes, she played Warped Tour in 2006. She was super supportive of what we're doing. She would ride her bike every day and sit on the side of our little pink stage and watch the girl bands. And she was scouting because she had her label, Blackheart Records, and the Dolly Ross actually was one of our bands.
She did have Blackheart Records, right? So
yeah,
she was basically stealing your bands from you.
No, it was great. I mean,
it was recruiting.
they were interested in signing my band
supporting,
as well,
right?
Yeah. But the very last day that she was on that tour, it was Cleveland, 2006. Incidentally, they were collecting some items for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Warped Tour exhibit. And Joan Jett made an appearance on the stage. And I got to play with her. It was one of the coolest days of my whole life.
You would think that might be the last I'd ever heard of Shira, And no, Shira's been another person always welcome at Thanksgiving at our house. We see Shira all the time here.
No,
we keep in touch with her.
Subsequently, we were talking in that interview, and then after she had mentioned she got to play with Joan Jett, get on stage with her, and they were backstage working up the numbers that they were going to do, and she said I felt like one of the Runaways. So
yeah,
that was great.
That was awesome. That was awesome. But Shira's keeps moving forward. She's never going to settle. She still feels that she has a lot to say, not only as an artist but as an advocate for women in the music industry. And over the pandemic, I sit on her board of a group of people trying to help her and advise her as she moves us forward. And her new organization, she told us a little bit about that.
So Gritty and Pink actually was a name that we got coined in the press when we were doing the Shiragirl Stage. But Gritty and Pink is a collective of women in music. And we kicked it off as a monthly event officially in January 2020 in LA. And it was a magical night. We had over 40 of LA's best female musicians, the basis for Pink. We did this all-girl jam. We did it 3 months. We had different themes, Grammys, Valentine's.
You said you did this at Los Feliz, like at the old Spaceland?
Yeah, it was at the Satellite.
That Satellite,
yeah, the old Spaceland. And it was incredible. We had sponsors come on board. We got press. And then, of course, COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So we pivoted to Instagram live stream fundraisers, and we've raised thousands of dollars for charities now.
Oh, that's
great. We have this bi-weekly Instagram show, yeah.
Gritty and Pink, though, is her brand. Now, they do some things for charity here and there, and they're always just supporting charities. But she actually, wants to build this into her own tours. She wants to build it into extensions of all kinds of
Absolutely.
brands. And she's done a great job with it. And she's also giving a marketplace. And I really like this because there's a lot of women entering the business in the technical fields. And the prototype of this website was pretty impressive that I saw.
We're actually creating a marketplace for women who work in all aspects of the industry, and then industry pros and partners of any gender that want to hire women, diverse women. And it's incredible because we did start out carving our community with on the musician side. And we have this community, a collective of over 200 female musicians with a collective following of 4 million on Instagram, 7 million on TikTok. So there's a lot of up and coming, next big things there. But then we wanted to really extend our community to women who work in all aspects of the industry. So behind the scenes, marketing,
100%.
producing.
Finding jobs and finding placement for anyone is a help. It's a transient business. And with this, as we asked her, how do you get a hold of her to get involved in this? If you'd like to be part of this new marketplace.
You can find us on Instagram, Gritty and Pink Life. And there is a link in the bio with a submission form if you're an artist. And you can also just slide into our DMs. Our website is grittyandpink.co. And it has a little bit more about the marketplace that we're building. We're currently in beta, so it's a closed invite-only beta, but we'll definitely be coming to all the people soon. And very excited also to connect with the industry side and really get some strategic partners on board to support what we're doing. Because we know we have the supply, and now we got to make sure we lock in the demand, because it's a two-sided marketplace, so we need both sides.
Understanding what she does and it really drove and worked for her, do you see a space in the industry now and in the future for an all-woman band type festival? And we've kind of experienced that before, haven't we? There was Lilith Fair. Remember when that came out and how that... And I don't know if that's, I'm sure it's stopped, but what are your, and I don't want to get you in trouble here, but we gotta ask what your opinion is, and there's that fight of, do you think it was a time back then, and could we sustain an all-women band
I don't know if we need an
now?
all-women's tour. There's now, if you're looking at festivals being much more diverse, they're trying, everyone's working towards
They
that.
need to be,
and I don't know
absolutely.
if, but I think I tried a club tour once. And it was called Girls Garage. And it was going to be...
I didn't know that.
And it was going to be artists, all-female artists, touring and doing clubs together. Mediocre, did okay.
Yeah.
But not great. You really, with that, for me, it was like, how do I bring enough bands, do the thing, work on breaking even? I was doing it as a break-even project. It ended up costing me quite a bit of money by the end of it. It just wasn't kicking, and maybe I had the wrong bands. Some people maybe say it's that. Do I think there could be tours? But I think once you get to that festival level, I think we have enough bands now. I mean, I love that the best punk band that's come out in the last 10 years, the Interrupters, and now they're out there opening that Green Day tour.
That's right.
Is led by women, a woman, and Amy's been around a while, but her songs are so impactful. But I really like what Shira just came up with, and we're gonna debut her song and video today for our fans. It's called Anti-Social Media.
You don't know me, but you're watching and you like my style. You wanna see through my eyes a while. If I post it, will you notice? Well, I notice you noticing me. If I don't get 1,000 likes, I won't sleep tonight. Oh, oh, oh. You don't have to like me to like my picture. You don't have to know me to be my friend. Get personal, it's virtual. Let's play pretend. Oh, won't you follow me, like me, tag me, share me? Follow me, like me, tag me, share me. Follow me, like me, tag me, share me. Listen to me, mention me, love me more. All your free time, now it's screen time. Stay plugged in, get online. Where you been? Feel the rhythm, algorithm, trying to calculate. You wanna go viral? Look how perfect my life is. Don't you wanna live just like this?
We have a new sponsor with Poca's Hottest Sauces. And Wendy's been very interesting because she's been around doing her sauces. And I asked her how it was working with us wasn't her first project, Tony. She's been working with artists for some time.
I didn't realize that, but I do love her sauces. I cook with them. I barbecue with them. They're great.
How's that vegan bacon salt?
That's the one I don't use.
Oh, it's the best. Beata, how's the vegan bacon salt?
I haven't tried it, but I really want to.
Oh, man. Guess what? We're going to have a little dinner here after this episode, and guess what's going on everything?
Oh,
the blueberry habanero sauce is so good.
Oh, yeah. Beata, what's your favorite?
The blueberry habanero sauce.
Blueberry habanero sauce. And, of course, I go, who would ever think of putting blueberries in their hot sauce?
It's weird.
It was
weird,
Beebs,
but it
of
tastes
course.
fantastic.
It was Beebs, of course, came up with the blueberry hot sauce.
Yeah, that makes
so, we asked her. She came over. It was great that she dropped by. She was out visiting from Florida and came over and hung out with us.
I started with the sauces. I'm a chef by trade, and I started making the sauces because just to help support local bands, because my husband is a musician as well. And so the first sauce that I made was actually for his band. And I was just a little traveling hippie kid, and I went to get all the music festivals. And I'm like, okay, if I make this sauce, then I can put the band's information on it, and then I can sell it at the festivals, make some extra gas money to keep going. And that was basically the start of it. And then after a few years, I had a few other sauces, and I was going to throw myself a birthday party. And I was telling Beebs about it. I'm like, well, we'll make it a cook-off. And where are we going to do this? And Beebs like, have it in my yard. So we started doing this cook-off in her yard, is where it began. Because then we had some of the bands for the sauces that I made, and people would create dishes and stuff with the different sauces. And so I was just brainstorming. I'm like, okay, I've got this. I'm going to make the sauce. And I didn't imagine this was, 2007? It's going on 14 years. I've been doing this craziness. And I was just going to do the one little sauce, travel around. And I was like, okay, I need a name. Like, my nickname has always been Pocahontas because I'm Native American blood. And so I'm like, Poca's flavor of the month. Poca, I'm just brainstorming. I'm like, Poca's hottest. My little logo is this little chick pepper band. There's a little jalapeno and a Scotch bonnet and a cayenne. And I'm not really great at being on camera. I know it's hard to tell today. I'm just been amazing so far. But I wanted my mascot. I didn't want to do that. So I'm like, I'll make puppets. And then they can speak for me. And then I don't have to be on. So I had the puppets made a while back. And I'm like, I was talking to Kevin. I'm like, ooh, maybe we could bring the puppets back.
Hey, Cassie, did you hear that the Warped Tour hot sauce is now available on the new My Warped Life podcast website?
What on earth are you on about now, Bonnie?
Do you remember the super tasty hot sauce by Poca's Hottest that I told you about? It was only available backstage for the bands and crew at the 25th anniversary Warped Tour shows.
Sure.
Well, they just made it available online at the My Warped Life podcast website. Now it can be enjoyed by the masses. And it gets even better. With every purchase made on the site, they are donating a portion of the proceeds to some really awesome charities.
You don't say.
So, we can spice up our favorite dishes with a super tasty, super healthy sauce, all while supporting small business and helping others. It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Good grief, Bonnie. Plug much?
Huh?
Oh, nothing.
Get Poca's hot sauce today and make all your meals taste even better.
That's our sponsor. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Tony.
It's Sunday.
So,
And who has she done sauces for?
I have done sauces with a lot of local stuff. Beebs, as we mentioned, made a cool sauce for G-Love. That was one of my first hemp sauces because I also started working with the hemp, the CBD.
Right.
And so I was like, hey, G. I was like, you want to do a hemp sauce? And he's like, oh, yeah. He's so super chill and sweet. So we did that one for, I think it was like a California Roots Festival. We were debuted that. But just a lot of more local, because I know a lot of the local bands, they have great music and they do great stuff, but they aren't really great at promoting. And so I'm like, well, let me help you out with something that's unique and that not everybody's got a T-shirt. Not everybody's got a cool sauce.
I do like the sauces that she made for you, the Kevin Lyman stuff.
Yeah.
We use that all the time. It's fantastic.
I think there are a lot of bands look to make collaborations and different things. So we're encouraging people to reach out to Poca's Hottest, and she might be able to develop a sauce for you.
Did we go over what's unique about her? She sits with the artist. She taught like she did when she developed your hot sauce. How would that process work for you?
It was back and forth. Like she asked, "How would you like this?" I go, "Oh, summertime. I like the Caribbean. Maybe it's got a little bit of undertones of like tropical fruits and stuff."
So it was your personality that brought out this. That's what I love about
then
these.
She sent me like 3 or 4 bottles of different, and then I said, "Well, that's pretty close," and sent it back, and then she fixed it up a little bit, came back. It didn't only took a couple times, but she really listens to the artist develop it, and it's just one of those things. It's like supporting each other. Her husband's in a band, and she's supporting and found ways to be involved. But she's also, it was great trying to keep me healthy. Keeping friends healthy. She does a lot of extracts now, and she's getting to be a licensed herbalist soon, and doing all kinds of stuff in her community. And I know that she really understands what it takes to stay healthy on the road. So, I'd get little bottles of stuff from her all the time to help with the immune system and things. All right, Beata, we're going to put something in here with you right now. As a young woman in the industry, grab a microphone.
Get in here.
For this episode, I thought, Tony, that'd be great because Beata was one of my students, who's graduated from USC, as a young woman going into the business now. And I thought maybe we'd bring her on.
I want your perspective 100%. Now, tell me, what did you graduate from? What school did you go to?
I went to USC. I studied economics and music industry, so I was in Dornsife, the letters of Arts and Sciences.
And that's it. So we expect you to become a huge music mogul in the next 20 years, and we can say, I know you win. And look, that's not rare for Kevin. He's met tons of people that are now monsters. So for you personally, do you see an overbearing gray cloud of doom for you and your... Otherwise, why would you do it? What do you see as challenges going into this industry, specifically as a woman?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so I DJ for fun on the side, and just from some of the events that I go to and some of the festivals that I've gone to, especially some of the smaller stuff, I think there really is a lack of female DJs. I think that's it's definitely changing. It doesn't feel so like doomsday. It feels like the culture is changing, but I definitely think that women aren't taken seriously as DJs. I think there's been times where I've been DJing a gig and a guy will come up to me and just push me aside and kind of say like, no, this is how you do it. And I'm like, no, I've been doing this for like 2 years now. I definitely know what I'm doing.
And when that happens, how do you handle it?
At least with that guy, I just pushed him back out of the way. And also with the, there's this one festival that I really enjoyed. I went to, it's called Yoon. And they have a bunch of DJs, super talented DJs, but there were only 2 female DJs on the lineup, and it's like a 3-day festival. So I should have already done this. I don't know why I didn't, but I want to just message them and be like, hey, you need to book more females. And I think that for this next one, they definitely did, but I'm just going to start saying it. Like, it's not something that should be...
Well, I think it transcends beyond just the artistry of the industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Across the board.
No,
I mean,
everywhere.
you could get accountants in the music industry.
Yeah.
And the overwhelming ratio of men to women, when I walk into the boardroom, and I have to deal with it for television and film too, it's a little bit more diverse there, but still, the dynamics are extremely one-sided.
Absolutely. I mean, even in my office, I just started this new job. I'm one of 2 women in a company of 15. Or one of 3, sorry, in a company of 15.
And it's a marketing business for
It's
music.
a marketing business in the music space,
Right.
yeah.
It's interesting, though, because I noticed in students, I'd say we had about 80% females in the music industry program.
That's what blows my head off. It's not like they don't like listening or being a part of
Right.
music any less than men.
And you guys are charging. Like, I always, like, there's every grade, every year, there's like strong females coming out of USC. And you seem to be entering, right now I call them the 2 Sophies that are coming up behind you guys who are kind of ruling, and they're doing an event called FemFest on campus.
Yeah, FemFest
That's
is awesome.
super, super strong. And then there's Amanda on Fire, who was like a freshman couple, this young girl, and she's got a partner, Shay, and doing so many cool things. Do you think you guys just might need to start your own companies?
Well, that's what I talk to my best friend Britt about this all the time, and we want to. That's honestly the ultimate goal. And even as you were saying, like some of the younger kids too, this girl Amanda reached out and she helps us with stuff, and it's just, I think we're going to have to take it into our own hands. Like, as you were saying, it feels like the younger crowd, like there's definitely a lot of like strong females, but just the people at the top of the industry, it's very still like male centered.
Well, I mean, it's beyond that too. It's the publishing, the licensing, the legal side of it, the marketing and management. I told this to Kevin before. Every time I go to the NAMM show, when we're talking about, instrument manufacturing, labels, all across the board, it's the whole industry. It's dominated by men. NAMM show is ratio is 9 to 1, men to women, and it doesn't seem like it's changing much. Why do you think that is?
And to be completely candid, I just think misogyny is still just a very huge problem in our
It's just
society.
the lack of opportunity.
I don't know if it's the lack of opportunity. I think it's almost like gatekeeping. I think like a lot of people in positions of power don't necessarily want to give that up, and so they kind of struggle to like give it to other people who are just as deserving of it. I mean, I see it not even in our industry, but like in others as well.
But if you get that company together, question for you, would you take an investment from an old white male? Just asking.
I mean,
the answer is yes.
Yes. I wouldn't turn that down.
You wouldn't turn down my investment because I'm seriously, they're awesome. So that's a question. Just, but I just thought it'd be great to bring, Beata, and seriously, I having so much fun teaching at USC and seeing these women who I always found that worked production with me and everything, and just going. I told someone, Tony, literally, like, oh, you could just start a company with they're so strong and they're doing so many cool things on campus and just taking it into their own hands because they realize now that they can't sit around and wait any longer.
Yeah.
That's right. You got to just do it.
And that's kind of what Shira did. She just took it in her own hands and made it work.
Yeah. I mean, even in every single one of your classes, I left just feeling like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Like, I can do this. So,
and you can.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us,
Thank
impromptu
you.
guest on the episode.
Sorry to put you on the spot
no,
there.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Beata, we're going to ask Beata, since we got our picks of the bands right now.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Who are you listening to that's new right now?
I went to see Dead City Punks at 1720. I don't think they're that new, but that was really fun. And this other band called Warpaint.
Oh, Warpaint's great.
Oh, and the Chats. They're an Australian punk band. Love them.
We turn them
I
on.
love Australian punk.
Oh, there's so many great Australian
There's
punk
so
bands.
many great
I can give you a
Australian.
list of them.
And Emil and the Sniffers. Is that how you say it? Emil and the Sniffers?
Yeah.
Also great.
Yeah. What about you, Tony? You listen to anyone these days?
I am not listening to anything except for Dean Martin. Nonstop. Gentleman of Song. Get the album. Just play it over and over and over.
And
Dean Martin will change your life.
I started putting together like my September kind of finds as I'm going. Some of them have been around a while. Some of them, anytime Bastille puts anything
nobody
out.
wants to hear what Tony picks, Kevin. They want to know what Kevin picks because you pick winners. Kevin, what's new and hot?
But this artist Lay, Laye, I found very cool. It's very, very cool. And I started listening to some new stuff from Elohim.
Elohim is awesome.
That's great. And then I was glad to see some new music from Dead Sarah. Dead Sarah was a band that was super hyped up in L.A. I brought them on the road with me. They had some issues. They had label issues. They were just this band, but they were so talented and so good. And I brought them. So it was great to see them back with.
So they got a new release.
They got some new release, and I don't know. It's this has been around a while, but I mean I love that new song by Milky Chance, Colorado. Can't go wrong.
Right on. That's good.
It just. There's so much good new music.
There's so much good new music.
Well, that was wonderful, Kevin. I really like the show.
And
women and what she did at the stage was amazing, and all these bands that had challenges that came on. It's wonderful that they all were able to get through it, that they had just a shitty time as the other bands and just a wonderful time as the other bands, too.
And I'd like to thank all our guests who joined. They were great. It was so fun. And thank you, Tony, for joining us this afternoon. And thanks for all the listeners for making it this far.
Hey, make sure you subscribe to our Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube pages. All the updates will come right at you.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook to get yourself an interview and be on the show.
And if you want to hear more from us or our guests, subscribe to our Patreon to hear more exclusive content and get discounts on our merch. And plus, a subscription to My Warp Life might make a great gift for a friend for only $5.
And one of the things we are posting free are our full-length interviews with all our nonprofits right now. It's been pretty cool. We just want to get those out there. It's not a Patreon thing. It's just get those stories out because they're so important.
Oh, and don't forget to text us with any topics or anything you want to hear or some stories that you have, or you can DM us on Instagram at My Warp Life.
All right. Hey, we want to thank Xavier Bradley, who will be away for his vacation. And I want to thank Vivian Wang. We also want to thank Beata Shimto for not only being a guest, but our social media person. And, of course, we want to...
Take it away, Diego.
Ow!